Excellent. Oh, it's so painful to kill all the organic discussion. Hopefully we're going to try and bring it back in a moment. Thank you, everybody, very much for coming to our session. Are you enjoying Access so far? Excellent, excellent. Well, my name is Andy DeMeo. I run a podcast newsletter called Granted Goodness. It's all about optimism, problem solving, people in and around New Hampshire, making the world a better place. Some of the people in this room have even been on the pod. Hello, hello. And today we're going to talk about tactical urbanism. Like, what even is that? So we're going to introduce these three amazing people. And even in like the design of this room, like this is going to be a little microcosm of this idea, right? Like, how do we activate these spaces? How do we engage the latent energy that is there to get people excited and thinking out of the box around, what can we do with a street corner or the side of a building or the design of a town, et cetera, et cetera. These people think way more about it than anyone ever does, and I'm very excited to introduce you to them. This is Charlie, this is Sarah, and this is Cecilia. Charlie, tell us a little about who you are and why did you want to come and talk about this?
So I am Charlie French. I work at the University of New Hampshire Cooperative Extension, and I lead our Community and Economic Development Department, and I'm also a faculty at the Carsey School for Public Policy. My team, we have extension staff all across the state, and our work is to help cities and towns on economic renewal and downtown revitalization. So tactical urbanism and placemaking is part and parcel of the work we do. And I'm here because I'm excited about the community engagement part of it, that when you get a community together with shared values and a vision, it's amazing what communities can do. So I'll hand it down.
You're going to keep that one, yeah.
Yeah.
This is going to get very messy otherwise.
Cool. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Sarah Powell. I'm the program director at the Hannah Grimes Center for Entrepreneurship down in the southwest corner in Keene. I drove here from Spofford, New Hampshire today. And we also do economic development. We work with a lot of small business owners, just getting started, kind of growing, scaling, and selling their businesses, kind of all the stages. And we also work with a lot of community members who have ideas and are just looking for ways to get connections to move something forward. We also have our national programming called Radically Rural, and you might be thinking, wait, isn't this about urbanism? And you're talking about rural, but we really love to talk about small towns and small cities across the country and how they can come together and shape and share ideas in different ways. And I'll be able to share some examples of that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hello, my name is Cecilia Uliwari. I am the co-founder and executive director of Positive Street Art. We're an organization based in Nashville, but we've been all over the state for 13 years now. And basically what we do in a nutshell is we use arts as a tool for positive change within our communities. And I'll be getting into that a little bit more deeper as we go through this conversation.
And you guys do dance as well, right? It's not just visual art?
It's a lot of different art modalities that we allow others to experience as the community needs it. Because we talk with the community to see what they want versus what we want to do.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, so when I think of this concept, right, like tactical urbanism or even, making a space interesting in a permanent or temporal way, I kind of think of the experience or vibe of a flash mob, right? Have anyone ever seen those videos of a train station and there's all the people and then all of a sudden they just start dancing and it's planned but accidental, and so that is what comes to mind for me. I don't know if you ever do weird stuff like that, but there's actually some people in this room who are about to do a choreography. I'm just kidding. I did say we want to engage the audience. Yeah, exactly. Surprise, surprise. This is the tactical urbanism. This is even turning this thing out of the way. Okay, so my most exciting question, why did you want to come talk about this in your own words? What is the weirdest or most interesting or most out of the box way that you have seen people in cities, towns, neighborhoods, anything, activate or get people excited about, their surroundings in a way that wasn't there before? Let's open with the most wild things. I want to hear from each of you. it's all up. I'm monopolizing it.
All right, I'll go first. So I think what would be helpful to answer this question is really to go back to our origin story and how we even became an organization 13 years ago. As most of you know, if you're here in New Hampshire, we're about 20 plus years behind the curve of most other states in this country. So hopefully that's not news to you. But when it came to the arts and the urban arts especially, we noticed that there wasn't a lot here. And we basically wanted to pave the way for other artists like us. And so there was a group called Visualize Nashua at the time, and it was basically a crowdsourcing of ideas where you talked to the community, you did a pitch party to talk about what you would want, and then you would hear what the community wanted or didn't want in their community. We pitched the idea of maybe just doing a couple of art cubes, temporary art cubes, basically these panels of wood that shaped a cube that we could activate in a park or wherever, and we could change out those panels just so we could have some murals in our community. And we pitched that idea, and the community was like, we don't want these temporary things. We want permanent things, and we want a lot of it. You guys should start a nonprofit. And we're like, okay, not even knowing what we were getting into, right? And so that has spiraled into what it is today. But again, it's all based on what the community wanted. So that in itself, I think, is a really cool and unique way of how we kind of got into this work. So yeah.
I'll share quickly. So in cooperative extension, much of our work is with some of the smaller towns in New Hampshire that don't have a professional economic development person or a planner. And so they're shoestringing it. They are relying on volunteers. And we all know in New Hampshire we have so many post-industrial mill towns with really cool architecture, old buildings. In many of these places, they're underutilized, vacant, and in some cases dilapidated. And I think about the work we did in Franklin, New Hampshire. If you've been to Franklin, it's a little north of Concord. We started working there over a decade ago, and if you've been through Franklin or you recall it at that time, it had a lot of vacant buildings, broken windows, vacant storefronts, and it had a tax cap, so it was really challenged in many ways. And so we took the community through a visioning process and said, what do you want Franklin to be? How can it be a place for all people? And partly as a result of that process, but as well as other processes that were going on at the same time, the community crafted a vision of having a place where people can bump elbows, little parklets, having storefronts and social places like coffee shops. The riverfront at that time wasn't even accessible because it was grown in with weeds, and so they cleared the riverfront. And so with some very low-cost tactics, they were able to turn the tide in Franklin and make it investment worthy. And all of a sudden, people saw Franklin as a desirable place to be. Eric Chinberg began to redevelop some of the mill buildings there, and several of the buildings have been redeveloped for mixed use, residential. There's a new brewery in town, a coffee shop, and so many things have resulted from this. And they're hinging on recreation because, as many of you may know, they have Mill City Park, which has become a whitewater park that's drawing people. So I think Franklin is a really cool story of how tactical urbanism can start small and then grow into bigger things.
One example that comes to mind that was shared in our Radically Rural Solution Slam a few years ago. That's something that we all still talk about. And
Can you define what is Radically Rural?
Yeah, so Radically Rural is an annual summit with year-round programming that really aims to build collaboration and community for rurally identified communities across the country. So kind of creating density. We're here in Manchester, and there's a lot of people and businesses and resources and different things kind of bumping up against each other. And for a lot of rural folks across the country, they might feel a little isolated and like they're trying to solve for these different things or create opportunities, that are very similar to what we're all sort of trying to do, right? So, the sort of tagline of Radically Real is to come together to shape and share ideas, to really celebrate and uplift what's what's going right and how people are sort of from grassroots to, all different kinds of collaborative solutions to share ideas. And it's across sort of a wide array of sectors. So we have sort of sessions on entrepreneurship, which is the one that I sort of spearhead, but also, rural journalism. What does that look like? Health and wellness. Education, arts and culture, land and community. So sort of really, what are all these different ways that rural communities, try to transform and create opportunity for themselves? And one of these really cool examples, and I like to think about how do we activate people and relationships. That's a lot of what we do at Hannah Grimes, both through our sort of more regional programming with the business development support, but also, at this bigger scale at Radically Rural, is how do we sort of activate everyday people in their communities to kind of lead the charge, to kind of help coordinate. And so this community in Vermont has this amazing model where they have this whole week where everybody that has a skill to share offers it. And it's like community college, but like truly community-led. Everybody that has something they want to share, and people can sign up to take classes on all different kinds of things, language, crafts, more traditional things, movement practices, and it really kind of transformed that community where they can really see each other in a new way, and to kind of create this really tangible opportunity to come together outside of sort of the normal realms that they might see each other every day, and to really see how everyone has something that they can bring to the table. And so that is something that has stuck with me, and it's stuck with us as a team, and it's really sort of become this sort of like, I don't know what I want to say, like shining example of how we can do something pretty simple to activate people in our communities, because I think we can often feel really isolated, even in small towns or small cities, just kind of doing the things that we do, we wear our labels, and sort of be able to come outside your box and like, well, I studied French for, 25 years and I don't really do that anymore, but there's all these kids that want to learn French or whatever it may be. I think that that's a really interesting example of activating people in social networks that can be really powerful.
You were there at this thing in Vermont?
No, they came to Radically Rural, and they pitched this as in our Solution Slam. So every year at Radically Rural, we have one of our sort of sessions. It's called Solution Slam, and people can just kind of pop up in the audience and take a minute to just share something that's happening in their community that they think is really worth celebrating and replicating. And when we say replicating, we don't mean cookie cutter. We know every community is different, like Charlie, like, and you too. It's like, but there are threads of ideas that can really be kind of taken and iterated and built upon, so that somebody doesn't have to start from scratch. That don't reinvent the wheel kind of concept, and to be inspired and to see how things come together in different ways.
Yeah. Excellent. And listen, by all means, we want to answer, like, you're all here for a reason. Ostensibly, you're curious about either of the panelists or some particular thing. So if folks have a question, and you want to discuss anything, just put your hand up. We'll come on out there. Oh, here we go. We got our first one. Because I have questions, but I have personal relationships with these people, so I can talk to them anytime I want. How you doing?
Hi there, I'm Thomas.
Great nails, Thomas.
Oh, thank you. The color's poison. So I'm curious about. So I have a building up in Bethlehem that it was a vacant storefront that now has a cafe in it and some good stuff starting, and I want to get a mural on the side of it, but. The next town over is Littleton, and I don't know if anyone's followed the news in the past few years, but there was a big splash with some public art that was done there, and the town of Bethlehem is also very artsy community, and it always has been. There was the Franconia College. It was kind of the bedroom community for a liberal arts college next door to it back in the '60s, and so it's just always had this sort of unique artsy town. But I want to get some art there, but not kind of the sunflowers and the beautiful things that are over in Littleton, but something a little a little more urban,
A little edgier.
Yes, exactly. So I'm just curious about, and I've gotten a lot of input, talking to neighbors and different folks. But I'm just curious about what that process could look like for me, and any input on like how that's received in an area, and sort of the better ways to engage the folks that will impact in our area. And if you could plug me into anybody locally that.
I mean, I'm right here. But
Okay, yeah.
We can talk about that offline, about if you wanted to work directly with us. However, if you're trying to activate a space in that way that you described, I would suggest, first of all, you have to make sure that you have permissions from the wall, like if you own the wall or it's your wall, you own the building. Okay, that's the first thing, right? The second thing is there's certain ordinances. You mentioned Littleton. I know what happened there. That was a great case study for, and I closely followed that. So for those of you that don't know, there was a donut shop that kids painted mountains that were made out of donuts. And because they had a signage ordinance, the city, or there's some individuals that made a stink about it, and they took it to the Supreme Court. Now, this is really interesting because art shouldn't be censored in that way, especially for a business if you own it. But anyways, they won the case, which is great. And it was great for artists like us to see like how we could use that as a case study to prove what we're doing is valuable. But anyways, make sure that you know the city ordinances, because there might be some stipulations there. Again, if it's a historical type of thing, you might have to go through the historical commission or whatever it may be in your community. But really, if you really want to get the buy-in, you want to engage the citizens as much as possible. We try to talk people into that process as much as we can. Some don't do it. Some they're like, nope, this is my building, this is what I want to do, and I really don't care what anybody thinks. However, when you include the citizens in your community, you're going to have more buy-in, and you're going to have less, I guess, people that are against what you're trying to do. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Charlie, I kind of wanted your take as well, because something that we've talked about, offline and before this is, we all think like, I'm like, murals everywhere. Like, why aren't they everywhere all the time? And not everyone shares that attitude, right? Particularly in a lot of towns, like they skew older, people are resistant to change, right? So this is a thing that each of you have encountered in your own way, and I think it's kind of like a pivot on Poison Nail Stephen's question. But like you've talked about this, so if you had any thoughts on his question or want to kind of go in that direction, like how do you deal with some of the resistance to, ooh, we want to do a pop-up whoopee, like not everyone's about it, right?
Absolutely. I think for me, when I started this, opened this session with my first comments, I said that the part about tactical urbanism that excites me the most is that it's inherently community-driven, or it has community input. So if you want to do something that's going to change the streetscape or the nature of the community, you have to engage the community. And what we often find is that the first reaction might be resistance to any idea. And so the idea of tactical urbanism is that it's meant to be a temporary pilot of something to show that something works. And what we find is that if people can see whether it's a curb bump out or a temporary bike lane or a small parklet, once people see it, they get used to it and they're going to be much more receptive to it. But as part of that, you have to do broad engagement in the community to get their input. You want to talk to everybody in the community that you can reach out to. It could be through forums, design charrettes, storytelling, going to the nursing home to collect people's histories. You have to talk to people, and you want to build that sort of vision from the ground up. And it might culminate with a charrette or something, but you have to have the backing if you want to get that support from the community. So that's where I say engagement for me is really a very, very critical part of tactical urbanism.
One cool example that we have in Keene, New Hampshire, we have murals now, and I can talk more about the history of kind of how that was laid out. Not by me, but by a dear friend and a group of people in Keene. But it kind of started as this temporary mural project. So a friend, Georgia Casamatis, Friends of Public Art, partnered with Keene State, and they created a program for, I don't remember exactly which class it was, but a group of art students to create these paper murals that they got permission to put up in a certain area. Sort of this really cool, actually now it's super cool, right guys? Like this is in between space, between two brick buildings. There's a lot of brick in Keene. These temporary murals and a couple other spots around town. And at first, I think people were kind of like, what, where are they? And through a few years of the project, it became like, everyone's like, wait, when are the murals coming back? Like, this is so interesting. And it kind of paved the way for these larger, bigger scale projects. So then they were able to get the wall dogs. I don't know if folks are familiar with the wall dogs. They go around the country, come to a town, and do these community-led mural projects. And it's a very collaborative, engaged process where muralists from all over the place and local muralists do sort of like locally driven, sort of historical. I think every town kind of decides what flavor it's going to have. And so just the temporary space kind of gave people, it activated in their minds like, oh, this is interesting. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, or whatever it may be. And now it's, I think maybe not everybody 100% loves them, but it is starting to become a little bit of the identity of Keene. It's a historic downtown, and it's been integrated, I think, in a really nice way. And it's, the Historical Society now does like a mural walk, and there's like different pop-up treasure, or like, what do we call them? Scavenger hunts. I'm looking at you because you do the KYP and stuff. Scavenger hunts. Like, so it's becoming integrated in a lot of different ways. It's very interesting. And then, during Radically Rural, our summit, so it's just kind of like been like small, practical little experiments that get people kind of engaged at a different level and to see possibilities. So like, I wonder for you if there's some opportunity to like try out, or maybe you have like, you kind of get ideas from different artists and kind of like trial them, in some way to like get people excited and get the buy-in, and they also give you some opportunity to be like, what do I want on my wall, right? You might already have a really sweet idea, but that's something that I wanted to share from our community. I think this worked really well. Yeah.
It's time, Cecilia. Yeah. Well, we got some pretty stuff here. So we're going to, do you want to show them the magazine? Like,
Yeah, I will. I was just, to answer your question and to kind of further what they were doing, talking about, is that you get the community together, right? So this is in Lancaster, which is in Coos County. It's a very small community. And so they're not used to having public murals. So who are we to just come into their community and paint this mural, right? So we decided that we were going to do a charrette. As Charlie mentioned, you could see that we went to the Rialto Theater. It's a super old theater, beautiful location, and we invited the entire community to be part of this conversation. We engaged the businesses that were in the community. We engaged the students to help participate, paint the mural, and then over here is the celebration, the unveiling. But, it was on there's the Lancaster Motel, there's this one strip in Lancaster. You can't miss it. It's right by the Welcome Center. And so you can take a picture on your way to Vermont or wherever you're going when you're going down that road. And it's a beautiful, beautiful depiction of what they wanted Lancaster to be showcased in the past, present, and future. And this was all based on the conversations that we actually had with those community members in that room. So it spawned off of those ideas. So I just wanted to share that because that tied into this question. And also, if you want to learn about another project that we did here in Manchester, you all have this magazine.
I've already seen some positive street art.
This is on the cover of your magazine, and on page 7, there's a little story about us and what we did here with that project and how we included the community here. So that's just a little bit of what we do. And yes, we're very visual. Oops, I went the wrong way. Oh no, what do I do?
Biotech is art too.
Yeah, that was not my slide.
Cells are beautiful.
Another one that we did was we've done this mural internship for a few years now. We activated this space by letting individuals tell their own story. So we work with at-risk youth. Some are court involved, some are unhoused, some are dealing with substance use, or their families are in jail. And then we also work with disabled adults, and they basically create this vision. Yes, they might not be the artists that you're used to seeing on the wall, but they are able to activate this space and tell their story. And it's such a beautiful thing. But also, along with that, we're sharing life skills with them, things that can help build their resume. We're connecting them to resources because we have this really unique opportunity because we're doing something cool and they believe and trust us. We're able to give them more than just the art experience, right? So that's another thing. And then those are just some of our murals. I'll just keep that up so you can look.
One thing that comes up a lot in sort of all the examples that we see in Radically Rural and the work that we do at Hannah Grimes is, build something at the speed of trust. And I'm sure you've all heard that. And it really matters because it's so hard to go back and sort of like repair something that's been damaged, even if it was inadvertent or, you just didn't ask people to come to the table. And so I think having the community involved and having other small businesses, I don't know if you're a small business owner but engaging them. Maybe it's like there's a bakery or there's somebody else, so you can create a really welcoming, inclusive event that like is clear that you've sort of had some intention behind it. You've moved at a pace that like people can kind of get on board. It'll save you time in the long run and also just create a much better result.
Thank you both. I don't know if you can like submit questions through the app and stuff, but I think this is funner anyway. But just want to let people know you can do that if you don't want to, ask. Hello.
Hi, I saw you look at my nails. They're blank.
Oh, that's what we're here to do.
I want poison nails. First of all, that is so beautiful. I'm sorry if this was mentioned earlier, but what is a charrette?
So essentially a charrette is an opportunity for community or a group of people to come together and share their ideas or their vision. And one way of doing it is that you could have artists or architects or people in the room sort of that's creating an artistic rendition of what that could look like. So it's creating sort of a design for what that idea, how it could take shape in a community. So it's like a community forum, but with an output of having some physical design. Well, it's CH, but I'm sure that if you're a language expert, I'm sure there's some derivative or some.
Yeah, it's also like from a meta perspective, like a facilitation sort of model. So it's how you're engaging. It's not just this is one sort of model, but it's really cool, super fun.
Sue's got a question. I can always count on you, Sue Kaplan.
Thank you, Andy DeMeo. So I've been listening, and I was thinking, we have a rails trail that goes from Concord to Lebanon, and there are a lot of things you can do around those trails. And I've never seen any art there, and I mean, I'm not bicycling too much anymore, but but there may be so much available for creativity and getting people into, not just bicycling, but having sense of place. And, I'm just thinking that someone would be interested in doing that at some point.
In Nashua, we have a rail trail as well, and we've done a couple of murals on that, but we also have a free legal wall. It's the only one in the state, so for those of you that don't know what that is, there are artists, street artists, graffiti artists from all over the world that will come and paint on this wall, and we've had so many, you could go 1 week, and then you can go the next week, it's completely different. It's part of the art of letting go. But if you go to that wall, there's layers of paint because people have painted. We've had people from LA, we had someone from Japan come and paint it because they look for them all over the place. So that's one way to activate a space without having to hire an artist or anything. The other thing is on the rail trail, they also have community gardens. So there's different ways to activate the space than just a mural as well. But the rail trail is a really great place. You know, people biking, people walking, whatever, can really enjoy that, you know, through their journey.
Well, and there's people, like, you can literally, you've seen these signs, like you can like bike on the rail. Like, I live up in Madison, New Hampshire, right? And they just put one of these in by the old post office. It's by the, like, an old rail. And now there's a big sign, and it's like you see the happy people on Route 16 in their helmets, and they're like biking at the recumbent bike. You know, like the old cartoons. Yeah, the guys like pushing the thing on the rail, they're getting away. Like, they have those set up on a lot of these things now, and it's a beautiful experience to like lay back and just pedal through the woods on these old trails. And my wife's always like, we got to go do that. So this is, you can literally activate that way. Like, you can do whatever you want.
Quick comment. I'm really glad you asked that question. I was hoping someone would bring up this idea of where does recreation fit into this. You know, I often say that every town has trails and waterways. And very few towns actually do work to make connectivity between the downtown and those trails. And so there's so much that there's wayfinding. How do you find your way from the trail to the coffee shop? There are simple things you can do that fit with tactical urbanism, is putting like footprints along the walkways, parklets. But towns have to intentionally structure their businesses and communicate and share what's available, because if I'm on a trail, I may want to grab a beer or a coffee, but how are you going to find out about that if it's not promoted? So, and another quick thing I would say is that in post-industrial towns in New Hampshire for decades, we turned our backs to the rivers. They were used to generate energy in woolen mills and grist mills, but that's also where all the pollution went. And so for decades, we turned our backs to the rivers, and it's only recently that places like Newmarket and Dover, Manchester, because you have the Amoskeag Mill Park there, they're actually saying we need to redevelop and fix up our waterfront and make it a feature of the community and not the place that we hide from the public. So.
Really glad as well that you asked this question. When I was sort of preparing for this, I was thinking about examples and also like kind of hopes for like the place that I live. And one of the reasons that I love to live in the Monadnock region, and Keene in particular, is that we do have a lot of really interesting intersections between the rail trails, the hiking trails, sort of the urban spaces, and I feel like there's so much potential and opportunity. And it's funny how like different stages of life, like you sort of start to think about things differently. I have a 2-year-old, and we started to do more like family biking outings on the rail trail, and so, you know, just like the pace of life is a little different. And thinking about all these cool places where you go walking, and there's like the storybook thing. We have that at the Oshuelit River Park, but just thinking about all the places and spaces that exist and how to kind of integrate them into like all different stages of life and what people are needing and looking for, and also just seeing cool examples in other places. You know, I think Vermont is a really cool example with like the brews and trails kind of intersection, and I think there's some really interesting opportunities, and to kind of support, and like from my role at Hannah Grimes, to support the downtown business owners in like embracing those sort of physical assets that surround Keene and our region, to make that kind of work for them in their own spaces and businesses. Yeah.
Oh no, Lewis got his hand up first. I'm sorry. See, now you've activated the brains everyone's thinking.
Sorry, Julie. So you're mentioning recreation, and just speaking of a disability voice, how do you make sure that disability voice is not just a checkbox on an accessibility list, right? And when we're talking about recreation, we're talking all 4 seasons, and oftentimes people with disabilities are excluded from various activities because of seasons or just how they're set up, even though they might be accessible according to the legal definitions. So just how would you all take that into account?
Thank you, Lewis.
I can share a quick example. So there's an initiative in the greater Laconia region called DIRT, and I don't remember, something Integrated Regional Trails. And this discussion about making trails accessible to all people has been part and parcel to the development process. There's ADA standards, so all of these conversations have to happen up front. And when we talk about engaging the broader community, that means the disability community needs to be engaged in these conversations as these are being planned, not halfway or late downstream. So they need to be, people need to be brought in early to shape those projects. So that's one example.
So I have a couple of key takeaways for you guys to bring home, and it ties into this question. One of them is collaboration is currency. Do not underestimate the power of that. That is how we've gotten to this point. You don't have to do it alone. When you try to activate spaces, work with community stakeholders, work with your citizens, work with anybody that's in your community that could benefit from this project or could lend their voice to. But in terms of your question, Louis, we have a wonderful relationship with the Plus Company and Opportunity Networks, who work with adults with developmental disabilities, and we really try to integrate them in the work that we do, and we treat them as peers, right? And we're also working with ABLE NH and the Disabilities Council and other people to make sure that we're making sure that we're not missing anything on that, because we want to integrate these individuals and also build opportunities for them in the future. So the people that have been in this mural internship, now we're hiring them out to do outreach with us. So if we have a table at an event and, you know, an activity that they could help facilitate, we're allowing them to come to our space and or come into that space and help facilitate alongside of us. And they're very excited about it. It's great. And then the second takeaway would be that relationships cannot be transactional. Relationships cannot be transactional. You can come in and just do that one time and be done, but you're not going to build anything or build any momentum after that. You really need to be intentional. So these people that we're working with now, we want to continue working with them until we can't anymore, right? Or hopefully the leaders that we pass the baton down to are going to continue with them, because individuals like that we're working with at the Plus Company and Opportunity Networks, you're building this relationship with them. We can't just leave them now, right? Like, we want to intentionally build those relationships to see them through their lives and how this work is integral in their everyday lives. So those.
I just have a quick plug. If you've not heard of Northeast Passage, it's a gem of a resource at the University of New Hampshire. And they do a lot of work around adaptive sports, but they also do consulting for any place that they want for all people to be able to access. And so they're an excellent resource.
Definitely highlight that relationships aren't transactional. I think that this, like, ROI has killed just like general hanging out and like community sometimes. It's like, I went to one event and I didn't walk out with 5 clients. It's like, it takes time, and it's okay to just be in it, to meet people and connect. So just, I think that's a great thing. I'm just glad you said that. I wanted to go back quickly to some of the rail trail stuff. I'm from the Monadnock region. We have a trail, a hiking trail where trees had fallen, and some wonderful person went in and carved really intricate carvings out of the fallen trees and didn't tell anyone, didn't promote it or anything. But well, and the thing is we did promote it. We made a reel around it, and we called it like the Hobbit Trail, and it's had over 100,000 views, and it's brought at least, I would say, 30 people to that trail that wouldn't have not come to that trail otherwise. And I thought that was such a unique way. You know, we're not an urban area per se, but it is there's art to be made anywhere. So I thought that was a cool example to give.
I love that. It just makes you think, like, people are constantly looking for reasons and excuses to, like, care, create, or be entertained, or, you know, fascinated or delighted, right, in their everyday or by a little sidewalk. And it's just like, so I love, like, this is all the work that you all do is like an inversion of a boring or lifeless status quo. Like, why does it have to be that way? Why don't we have little hobbit houses all over? I know it's like a little ridiculous to say that, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a provocative thing to do that. Who could make art out of a fallen tree branch and not tell anyone, right? Like, we have such cool people here in New Hampshire.
I was just going to add to that really quickly that, how are you going to retain these people? You got to give them something to want to stay in their community. So activating these spaces is so critical to their quality of life wherever they're living.
I was also thinking about this relationship piece, as I started saying today, just how do we foster and activate relationships in people, and giving people the opportunity to share their ideas can be just like a really simple act. And even if you so how we do that at Hannah Grimes and through the work we do in Radically Rural is, idea slams. We love to have these opportunities to just bring people together in a room, no agenda, really, just like give people a platform, a safe, welcoming space, a simple format to stand up in front of their, fellow community members and kind of pitch an idea. It's something that's maybe been on their mind, maybe an opportunity that they see, but they're not quite sure what to do, how to move something forward. And that is really powerful because it gives them this agency that maybe they've been feeling like a lack of, or just a platform to kind of shine a light on something that they're like really excited about. And we've seen that become a really engaging way to build community across sectors and also give people the opportunity to kind of step into something. And maybe they're engaged in a way that they sort of take initiative in a new way, or they're like feeling excited, or they get positive feedback from other community members. Oh my gosh, totally. I was thinking that the other day, or whatever it may be, and kind of spark something to move it forward. Also, the engagement piece, it gives people kind of what you were saying, is that stewardship of space. Like, it's the feeling connected to your place and your space, but also being invited to be a steward of it. And it might be physically stewarding it, or it might be, oh my gosh, have you gone to that awesome trail? Did you see those carvings? Like, let's get together and go check that out, or let's go look at this beautiful mural that's new and grab a coffee and go to the park, or whatever it may be, just to kind of celebrate where they're from. It gives them new, exciting ways to kind of be part of their own community, which I think is exciting.
Here we go. You've had a question for a while.
Yeah, I have a tenuous question. I have a part of a question, and my fingernails are actually great. Gratefully, I cleaned them yesterday, so they're awesome. I represent a non-for-profit in Manchester that's at a kind of prominent intersection, a physically prominent intersection that you drive by probably all the time. And I'm really intrigued, and this is why I'm going to throw my pen at myself, activating a space and telling a story. This is a lesser-known non-for-profit that's doing a beautiful mission for the public good in Manchester. And we're about to think about our space, and we have a goodly amount of space. And I'd like to tell our story to the community so that when you drive by it, and I think perhaps it's just a billboard. I don't think so, though. I think that how the space is set up and thought about could express to the community what it's doing there. And then secondly, I like this idea of activating a space and telling a story it's a residential community for children who've been removed from their families. I'd like them to have a sense of pride when they return there. And who do you talk to about imagining a space that expresses that story? Is that beyond, that could be murals, it could be street art. I believe in sort of placemaking. This is the kind of why it's a half-baked question, but it's like, I'd like to think about it more broadly than just landscaping. I'd like to think about a way of communicating its story.
So I have a thought on this, and I don't think this is going to fully answer your question, but one thing that we did in Franklin, there was a space, and it was a corner building that was empty, so I don't know exactly what's at this intersection. So talking about flash mobs, we tried this thing called a sticky note flash mob. So we took sticky notes of different colors, and we framed a question on the corner of the window. And we just put the question up there and left the sticky notes out there. And one of us was actually filming to see what happened. And sure enough, within a few minutes, someone kind of looked at it and picked up a sticky note and put it up there. And within 3 days, we had hundreds of sticky notes. And not only were these ideas generated about what that space could be, the question was essentially, if we could activate the space, what would it be? And people began to organize them into themes, and then we began to see which themes were most prominent. And so that totally shaped how that place got redeveloped. So don't know if that context is the same. Right, and it was created by the community, and it became a reality. So I think what I go back to is engagement. Is there a way to engage ideas, and the storytelling is another way to do that. So
I would try to engage your clients or your residents or the community that embodies that lives in that space, and see what it is that, because you set up something about that makes them kind of proud and want to come back there. So definitely getting feedback from them.
I think I love the idea of the Post-it note flash mob. That's great. We did something like that for our gratitude mural. I think where you should start before you get into reaching out to people and seeing who are the best people at the table, because you have to have like past, present, and future kind of people at the table. So think about that. But you need to first figure out what your goal is. Like, what is the goal of telling your story? What do you really want to drive to the community as they drive by every day, or the people that are coming to the building? Like, you want to start with that goal so that you can trickle down and narrow who you want to be at that table. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, it's all really. I just began thinking about it. It's the Webster House in Manchester. We have substantial plot of land. We have an old colonial house that you would drive by and think was just residence. And I think as you're speaking, that's helping me think about it. I think right now I'm just thinking about expressing its mission to the public. This is what's going on.
All right. We have got a question in the app. Very exciting. Have any of you worked with the Arts Build community group here in Manchester? You heard of them? Okay. I don't know if the person is here in the room with us and they want to like say something about it.
No, it's me. I think you use it. No, I've heard about this group, and they do projects in August where they, a lot of the murals in Manchester have been designed and part of that project. And I didn't know. It sounds very similar to some of the work that you're all doing. I didn't know if you engaged with that group at all, specifically here in Manchester.
No, the person who organizes it was as a past board member of ours. We have not been invited to participate. However, we'd love to have that conversation to be involved in it in the future.
Something that just popped up, and I might ask Julie to fill in a little bit, is I was just thinking about the ADU challenge. Can you talk a little bit about that from our region?
We have an organization, Southwest Regional Planning Commission. It's a planning commission, obviously, and we have a housing shortage just like everybody else in New Hampshire. And so they did something to be creative where they did an ADU challenge, and homeowners were able to submit their home as a potential sort of design scape, I guess, for an ADU. And then they worked with Keene State in the architecture students to design ADUs for the winner of whatever home I felt like that I believe was best able to accommodate an ADU. So that was a way that they worked together to include the students, and there was a big sort of event around it. They also had a gingerbread making pop-up event, so like kids could come and create ADUs attached to their little gingerbread houses and stuff like that. So I hope I adequately.
Yeah.
I have one thing. Someone mentioned Celia, talking about past, current, and future, and I feel like that's something that we're struggling with in our area, is getting people to make sacrifices maybe today for the future. In particular, like we have a major infrastructure project that really has to just move forward. And it's scary because it will impact sort of downtown for a couple of years. But the idea of how it will serve the next generation that's going to be there, and also accessibility. It's an opportunity. Keene is terribly inaccessible. There's steps everywhere. And so, it addresses that, but it's like, it's hard to create that culture of like thinking about the future. I wonder if there's any advice there.
I think I would just go back to one of my key takeaways is like relationships are not transactional. If you start to build out things that are a little bit smaller than your bigger picture, like start doing smaller activations of spaces, right? Because murals is not everything. That's just one of the things that we do. We use that as a tool to get to the general public and, you know, build communities and do all these other things with, but that is not the only thing that we do. It is a way and a means to get people to us and what we do outside of that. Also, it's accessible, right? You don't have to pay a ticket to go and see these things. So I would say build those relationships, activate smaller spaces, start small first, and then build on that, because then if they love what you're doing, then you can start bringing them into the conversation. And the wisdom with the past, present, and future, whether you have school kids involved and elders involved, you're getting those different pockets of people in the room to do these things together. And those spaces are beautiful as well. So I don't know if that.
I think I would echo that. In cooperative extension, we used to run a program called Community Profiles, and it's essentially a community visioning process. And we've done it in 85 towns and cities across the state. And it's really framed around past, present, and future. Where's your community been? Where does it want to be? And how are you going to get there? And what we find is that, you know, a community may start by saying, well, we want a community center. Well, that's a big undertaking. So when we do this process, oftentimes there are many ways that you can get to that vision that aren't the big kahuna, that there are intermediary steps that you can take. So I fully subscribe to the idea that sometimes it's small steps that you can take that are incremental that might lead to that bigger change. So.
Sarah, wasn't there, you might not be familiar with it, but wasn't there some like really clever way that there was like a big project, like the downtown renovation in Keene, and they had done some clever thing. It's okay if you don't know about it, but
I mean, it's just layers and layers of community engagement and attempted community engagement. I think a lot of us in this room probably know how that is. You really want to bring people to the table, and it's like, how do you get them there? And then just, it's like, keep showing up, keep trying. I'm not on the city council or like affiliated at all, but I think I like, from the work that I do and I get to do in my community and like with Radically Rural, is to find precedent. Like, even if it's not completely applicable, it's not, like I said, cookie cutter, but what has happened in other places, can we celebrate examples of both processes and also end results, so that people can kind of start to be like, oh, I kind of like that part of that thing. Or I think it's not that people aren't creative, it's just they're not often invited. We're kind of like in our roles in our communities, and when we ask people to kind of be part of something, it's like, give them a little something to kind of get the juices flowing, so that they're not just asked to kind of start from scratch. I think that can be really helpful and really valuable, and also just kind of give people get excited. Like, oh, we could do anything. It's possible, and I'm really familiar with. It's hard. It's hard to make change, and it's hard to kind of downshift before you can kind of accelerate towards a new future. And that's these old aging infrastructures in our towns, our rural towns. I mean, it's just, we're all going to be there at some point. So it's, how do we do it, and how do we do it well and get people on board? But it is definitely challenging.
all right. Are you saying we're almost at time? Oh, I did? I don't see it. Could you share what my thing's not working? We're almost we want to get every minute we can squeeze out of here. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay. Tactical urbanism often starts with small grassroots ideas that ripple into community-wide change. But success depends on people taking action, not just being inspired. What strategies or tools do you recommend for empowering the people in this room to translate their own small ideas into visible, impactful projects in their communities? If the person here wants to addendum to that. Oh, it's you. Great question. Oh, your phone.
I would just start by starting with like something that you really love, that you really care about. Because I think there's a lot of different, we talk about community, there's just so many different pieces of that. And to be authentic and to kind of really like have the willingness to have the grit to kind of like see something through, you have to really care about it. And it's not to say that you don't care about these other things, but like have it is there a personal connection? Is there something that you really, really love or really want to see? And just do that and start by talking to your friends and get on the boards, get on, go to the meetings, do what you need to do, but pick the thing that really resonates with you, and that's your thing. You don't have to do all the things.
I will go back to tactical urbanism is about engaging community. So I think that it's important to engage the community in whether it's a process, whether it's a charrette, storytelling, whatever it might be, to sort of create that collective vision for the community. And in what we do in Extension, when we work with the community, they might craft a vision and 5 goals that they want to achieve. Oftentimes, communities aren't ready to move to action, so they need a little bit of support to help that action committee get moving. Maybe some modeling of how a meeting should be run. But we try and be there, as well as other organizations, to support that group. So sometimes there's just a little bit of support that's needed to get them over the hump. But if they can get some things under their belt and some quick successes, that leads to future successes. And what you're doing, essentially, is cultivating new leaders in the community who are getting engaged and could be the ones that make change 10 years from now.
Thanks, Charlie. One addition, and it's something that I work a lot with our small business owners on, is you don't have to know all the things. You don't have to be the expert even. And it's how do you sort of build your team? And when you're really small, it is not building a team that you're paying a lot of money to be around you, to help you. It's like, okay, do I have a cousin that knows something about web development, or do I have a friend that, they've done some marketing? Like, be really creative and strategic, and don't think that you have to know all the things. Just like find the people in your community that have this different skills, and think about what your skills are. We all have our secret sauce that we bring to not just our work, but our communities, our home lives, and really, like, that's worth something in a community. And try to build your team. Who be creative about it too. Like, have fun with it.
Both of you took the words out of my mouth. So to summarize, I would just say, have that passion initially, build your team. Community engagement is so very important, and follow through, right? I think those are the key things that are going to make a project.
Start small.
Yes.
Don't get overwhelmed.
Yes, start small, but have your end goal in mind. I think that's the summary of it all.
This conversation has got me thinking of this phrase, social capital, right? That gets thrown around a lot now. And it's no accident, right? If anyone's heard of Robert Putnam, right, the author of Bowling Alone and all these other things, he's kind of like the preeminent scholar of this concept of, like, how do you define, wealth or value in a way that's, like, not monetary, like the value that people have to each other in the community, the things that they can accomplish outside of, like, our traditional view of economic transactions, right? Like, that's what social capital is. And Robert Putnam lives in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, okay? Like, I don't think this is an accident. And so all of the things that you're talking about, and there's many, many examples, like, yeah, totally, there's a bunch of ways that New Hampshire, you could look at and say, we don't have the resources, we can't succeed in the way that other bigger states can, but through a certain lens, direct democracy, right, and some definitions of this concept of social capital, like, it's actually a thing we have in abundance in a lot of towns. Like, I think if you were to explain the success and rapidity of the community power movement, for example, the New Hampshire Community Power Coalition, to people in other states, they'd be like, wait, what do you mean you got people in, 30%, 50%, like, it's going so fast to self-organize and figure out how to become their own utility, to, like, do all these things. Like, it's crazy. So there's examples of this all the time where we really are utilizing, again, this resource that is in abundance. You just have to find the right way to activate it, right? That's my takeaway. We've got like 2 minutes left. One sentence from each of you. What do you want people in this room to remember?
I think engage your community. If you have ideas, make sure that you can get the community on board and build trust.
And think about who your community is. I think there's a lot of different sort of Venn diagrams, right? It's like the big community, and then there's like different people doing different things. And really think outside the box about who you can engage with and who can be on your team. Like, be really creative with that part, because if you can do that from the beginning, I think it leads to greater success and a whole lot more fun.
Yes, to both of those things. And back to my two key takeaway points, collaboration is currency, relationships are not transactional. And I also have some cards and stickers at the back. I have a mural tour little card as well. If you're interested in those, you can grab those on the way out.
All right. Let's give a big round of applause to everybody. Yeah. Woo. Excellent. Thank you all for coming. This is Cecilia's 8th conference day in a row, by the way. It's impressive. Amazing. Yeah, this was recorded. I should have told you that at the beginning, but I don't think anyone said anything they regret. So you're going to find this later on grandagoodness.com if you like. Check it out. These people are all online. Thank you very much for coming.